Hey, it's Jem. We're gonna get a little personal here. It's a discussion that I feel like it needs to be heard. So if you're a little squeamish, I suggest maybe click away. But I highly recommend if you're a woman, you should listen. And if you're a man who loves a woman or knows someone who is a woman, I think you should still hear it because it's a very common thing. Unfortunately, it's not known. There isn't a lot of awareness apparently, and I want to talk about it more because it can happen to any woman in your life. So I want to share you my experience. So let's talk about fibroids. Fibroids are a mass of cells. They can be, it's like a tumor, but luckily they're not cancerous. So that's a good thing about that. What can cause fibroids, what I've read and researched, is that it can be from obesity, you can have a family history of it, pregnancy can cause it, and an interesting fact is that it affects Black women more, and sometimes they can experience it a lot more pain when they go through fibroids. So that's just mind-blowing how Black women are more likely to get this. Just do a YouTube search and you can see the results, that majority of the results are from Black women. About when you're 30 years old to around 50, like when you're about to hit menopause, is when we start getting fibroids. And after menopause is when we don't see a lot of fibroids. So us middle-aged women, we're shit out of luck. And unfortunately, we don't know what causes fibroids. It's believed to be it's related to our hormones with the estrogen that we produce. So it's just so strange how it's unexplained, but we should expect to get it. And I don't know why we don't talk about it more. So ladies, let's keep talking about our periods. Let's, from all races and ages, because it's just unfortunate that this is something that we all have to live with. Some women don't see symptoms. Some women actually will have fibroids and don't have to go through surgery, what I had to go through. So we just need to keep talking about our health. Let's keep talking about our periods. It's so important so that we know what we should look out for. So let's get started at the beginning. It was toward the end of February, and we were just so hyper focused on the move. We are moving to this apartment you see here, my grandpa's basement. And also, New York City was shutting down around this time. So we're just trying, in our minds, just trying to get through here, move all of our stuff. And during this period, ironically, I started my period. And I was just like, it's a little early because I still have like a couple of pills to go through since I'm on birth control. But I didn't think much of it. I just continued as normal, and it was a light period, so I didn't think much about it. And yeah, it just happened and I just dealt with it like a normal period. But that's when I started to notice something was wrong. It didn't stop. I kept bleeding for another week. So 2 weeks I'm currently still bleeding. So finally we move into my grandparents' basement. It was the first week of March, and I knew that I just had to now that I was finally settled here, like I needed to call a doctor. For some reason, I just could not get in touch with somebody at the office, but luckily there are different locations at this practice. So I would just, because the only place that I ever went to was in the city. So I was like, I need somewhere a little bit more local around the area. It was still the beginning of this pandemic, so I guess they're all trying to figure out how they can handle with patients and doing tele appointments or like FaceTime appointments. And that's when I finally got a hold of them. They told me like, okay, we can set you up to do FaceTime and you can talk to the doctor then. I set up the appointment, and I think that same day, my period got heavier. Ladies, when you know things is wrong and you can feel that it's a heavy flow, it was a heavy flow. I had to run to the bathroom. I had to make sure that I was not making a mess, but it was bad. And I knew there was definitely something wrong, and I had to see them. Later that night, when I finally talked to the doctor, they were just like, yeah, it does sound serious. Let's get you an appointment, first thing in the morning. And I was like, fine, well, hopefully this won't be bad. But then maybe 15 minutes later, I get a call back and they said, Ashley, we need you to come in now. So I had my dad drive me to the clinic. I was mortified and explained to him what was going on, but I'm close with him, so he wasn't really grossed out. He was just more concerned, and I'm very grateful for him. When I finally got there, they immediately did a sonogram, checked my belly, and they checked a sonogram with the rod, so they stuck it up there, and that's when I found out I have fibroids. So they scheduled me for a surgery that weekend. It was fun. And the 2-3 days before surgery that weekend was one of the worst that I had to go through. I was still bleeding. They gave me medication to help slow down the bleeding, but it was still so bad that I actually had to buy some adult diapers, and I was just so embarrassed every day because I had to keep changing it. Sleeping wasn't even the greatest because I had to keep waking up in the middle of the night to change it. Sometimes we had to change the sheets. I was just going through a lot because I could not do much to stop it, but just to deal with it until the surgery. So remember, this is still literally the beginning of the pandemic. New York is now shut down. I guess this is when I started to build some anxiety because I had to be outside when they told us to stay inside, but had to start wearing masks, and was not a fun experience. This is my first surgery ever. I've never been under, never had anesthesia, but they said that it should be fairly quick. The procedure was about 20 minutes and it took another 20 minutes for me to recover, so about an hour, but the wait was like 2 hours because they were behind. So that was fun. It was like my entire day was just sitting in the office, in the clinic, waiting, and then in there preparing for it. And then finally, it was definitely like way past lunchtime. I was already starving, and I didn't eat anything all day that day too. So what I learned, and I wish I should have asked more questions, but they did a hysteroscopy. They stuck a camera in me just to double check, and then they did a DNC, or dilation and curettage, which means they would scrape a little bit of my lining of my uterus to help stop the bleeding. So at the time, I didn't know they only took a little bit of the fibroid out. Post-surgery is fine. I stopped bleeding on a consistent basis. I was living my normal life until I started getting my periods. Now, this is where it starts to really hurt. At first, I thought I was getting better, but then maybe after the second or third period after that first surgery, it just got worse. It was always the second day of my period was the worst days, and I would dread it every single time. I would try to mentally prepare myself. I had to mentally prepare myself for my period because that's how much pain I knew that I was gonna go through. Like, first day, it's just like normal. you're bleeding and you're just kind of like your body is just like getting used to it. But then the second day is just the most torturous and painful experience I have ever felt. Like, if you guys already have extremely painful periods, think of that 5,000 times worse than that, because I never felt any pain like that before. I've had really bad cramps during my period, but nothing like this. And I hated every moment of it. There were times that I had to cry in the corner of this room and also try to stay active with work and just dealing with it. And some of those days I couldn't even work. I was just so much in pain, and I hated it. I hated every single time. And some days my periods were much longer than they were supposed to be. Like, my average periods would be about 5 to 7 days. Now my periods were as long as 12. So almost half a month I would be dealing with bleeding, only 2 weeks of no bleeding, and then another 2 weeks of bleeding. Honestly, I think I was in a dark place every single time I got my period. I don't know why, but I would always have these dark thoughts. I guess I went in through a form of depression because I was dealing with physical pain and then also dealing with a lot of emotional pain, because as a community manager on social, I'm always on social. I was in the middle of launching a game. Then Black Lives Matter happened. Then shortly after that, then stories of sexual harassment and allegations came out. And it was upsetting because I knew a couple of men that were named. And I was just shocked. And it was upsetting. And, you know, there were so many thoughts of like, what if? And thankfully it did not. But unfortunately, and I feel for those women who had to go through all that. And then on top of that, I was just dealing with my own family issues. But that's the reason why I did not stream during 2020. There was just a lot of me just trying to just keep it together. I hated it. I honestly hated it, and I still hate it. So I had another follow-up, and I told them that I was not getting any better. My periods were still painful. I wanted to know how do we get rid of it, how to get rid of this pain. They did another check, found out that the fibroid got bigger. So that's when we decided that we need to do another surgery, and it had to do a myomectomy this time. So I actually had a submucosal fibroid, which I'll point out in this image to kind of show you what it looks like, and that's what I had to get rid of. I did have another fibroid, but it wasn't causing my issues. It was this big main one that was putting me in a lot of pain. Now, if you followed me on social, I'm sure you saw my posts, me getting into surgery and afterwards. So I was doing pretty okay. Just wanted this to be done. This time it was out in an actual hospital. It took a lot longer. My poor boyfriend and my dad had to wait for me outside in the parking lot while I had to go through this surgery. So thank you to both of them for being troopers and being my support during this time. And yeah, so December 30th, 2020, right after Christmas and just before New Year's Eve, I used this time to recover. I did not have any alcohol, just because I had meds while I was recovering, and just luckily I was on holiday break. I also extended just a little bit longer just so I can make sure I was resting, even though I was still acting pretty normal. Recently, I had another follow-up just to make sure everything seems okay. It wasn't then I was informed that my fibroid was about 6 centimeters. It was about the size of like a kiwi or a small like a big strawberry. So that's pretty big. I can't believe that was something that was inside me growing. And unfortunately, there are women who have much larger fibroids, and I can't believe what they had to endure. So what am I doing now? I think for me, this was a wake-up call. I want to be healthier. I need to have a better lifestyle and a better diet. I just need to do better. So I'm trying to take more walks in the morning just to stay active. I need to eat a little bit more healthier. So I was suggested to take a Mediterranean diet. So a lot more fish, a lot more fruits, more vegetables. Obviously, try to cut out a lot of the junk food in my life. Unfortunately, I still have a lot of junk food at my home. So some key takeaways, I guess, and some signs to look out for if you yourself or your loved one is going through that. If they're going through a really painful period, or it's just periods that are much longer than a week, or the fact that you just start seeing blood clots in your period, go see a doctor. Go see your OBGYN and ask them for a sonogram, because that's the only way they can find out. And I have another follow-up in 6 weeks. So this story is not the end, and I will keep you posted on that. But I want to take the opportunity to say thank you for listening and hearing me out about this story. I hope you all learned something. I will keep you posted about what I'm going through with this whole fibroid thing. So cross fingers. Hopefully I don't need another surgery. Hopefully I just being healthier would help my chances of not going through that. So yeah, this was a very personal story for me to share with you on the internet, and I'll catch you guys the next time. So always be kind, have fun. I'll see you around. Bye.